Today I want to start working on adding our custom fields to our backend and our front end so that we can have the username, the gender field, and the avatar field up and ready when we have our profiles and all of the things that we're going to be showing on the front end. Before we do that, I want to bang out some of the really quick things that we can do that aren't going to need their own videos because they are so quick and simple to do. And one of those things is going to be to change the app name that we have. Now, the easiest way to do this is to go to our .env file and we can add it up here. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for us. I want to make this super easy, so I'm just going to do Laravel, or we'll do Laravel social network. And then I'll also add it to the .env example so that we have it if we are going to download the project. So that's the first thing that I wanted to do. If we come over here and we refresh, you can see that we have the Laravel social network up here. The next thing I want to do is I want to set it up so that the authentication pages that we have our logo on it, because right now it has the Laravel logo. So we can go ahead and change that. And if you remember from the previous episode, we have the logos now in our storage folder so that we can go ahead and use it anywhere. So we'll come over here, and where that layout is under resources, JS, layouts, auth, and the auth simple layout is the one that we're using, and that's where we can do this. As you can see here, we have the app logo icon, and then we have the title. Now, instead of the app logo icon, I'm going to change it to be an image. The source is going to be storage, images, defaults, and our file is called logo PNG. And then we'll have an alt for it, and we'll just call it social network. What we'll do is we'll use the same classes here. And that should be good. Let's go ahead, get rid of this. And because we're importing it up top here, we can get rid of it from there, save that, and check the browser. Okay, so you can see we have that here. We go to the login page. Because it is in the layout file, it's going to be on all of these auth pages. So that's not something that we're going to have to deal with later on. Now, as I said before, I wanted to do the username, avatar, and the gender. And those fields I want to be filled in when a user is registered so that they can just add all that information later. Whatever they want to change, they can do it afterwards. Once they've already been registered and they have a profile and everything, they can update it there as well. But here is where I want to start us off with being able to input that info. So to do that, I want to create another table because even though we have the users table, we have the name, email verified at, and that's absolutely fine. But what I want to do is I want to create a new table so that it can add those fields to this table without actually touching this file here. We'll go ahead and open up another terminal, and we'll do PHP artisan, make migration, because all we're making is a table, and we'll say add profile info to users table. And Laravel will be clever enough to know that that's exactly what we want to do. There are just some fields that we want to add to the users table. Now, if we come over here and we come down to our migrations, you can see we have another file here that is to be added with the users table. So let's go ahead and add those fields that we're going to need. The first one I want to do is the username. So it'll just be a string. And then this one we'll put after the name field that we have in the users table. The next one is going to be for gender. And this one I want to put after this username that we have right here. And then I want the avatar. And how we're going to do this is we're going to have a string that we put in the database, and that string is going to be associated with our storage file. When a user updates their profile photo, we'll be able to just add that new string, which will link directly to the storage file. It'll just be a string here. I want it after the gender field. And I also want it nullable because when they register, everyone's going to get a default photo, and that default photo is not going to be in the database. I want to leave it nullable so that it is an empty field in the database when we look at our migrations. Now, because we have this up here, we need to drop these fields. And the easiest way to do that is to grab the table, and then we're going to drop column. And then because we have a few columns in this migration, we're just going to add them all here. So username, gender, avatar, and then we can leave that at that. Great. So our migration is going to be done. And as a matter of fact, I want to run that migration. So that should be in our database already. All we did was ran this table, which is going to add those fields to the users table that we already have in the migration. Let's go back here, save all of that, and then we'll start with the model and add those fields to the model first so that I don't forget. And if we come down here, we're going to add them to this fillable field. So we'll say username, gender, avatar. And then we can add the properties up here too. And let's just check this. Now our model is complete and we've gotten that sorted out. I'm going to close this for now. We're going to go to the factory because whenever we run the migrations with the factory, I want to make sure that those fields are included in there as well. Here, we're going to do the username. We'll just say fake user name. And these are coming from Faker. And we'll do gender. As I said, we're not going to worry about seeding the tables with the avatar. Then we'll do gender. And here, what I want to do is I want to create a variable. I'll call it genders. And then we'll say genders equals male, female, prefer not to say. Which is good because then for this field right here, for the gender field, we can say fake random element. And then we can just put the genders in here. And that will choose from this array up here. Now we don't need to put the avatar because, as I said, it's going to be nullable by default. And the only image that we're giving anybody that we're seeding this to will have a default image, which we're not going to deal with today. It's going to be another day that we do that, but that is something that we will be doing. So we don't need to actually add that here. And if we come down here, all of these are good. Save that and we're good to go there. We can also deal with the seeder now. And as I said, we're not going to be dealing too much with this today, but we can get rid of this. And then when we do get ready to see the database, we'll just use this method right here, which is getting the factory to create 10 fake users. So this is done. That's done. Everything for our database is pretty much done. Now, since everything is pretty much done for the database, we can work on the backend part that actually deals with creating a user or updating the profile or whatever in the backend with those fields. So we do need to add those fields to those different functions. So the first one is going to be in the Fortify actions and create new user. Now these don't yet have those fields, so we're going to have to edit them and add them here. Now I'm going to take this one and we'll say username. This will be gender. Save that. And now, as you can see here, there is a profile rules property that is on this validator. Now, where are those profile rules? Well, if we go to app concerns, you see we have two different validation rules. One is for password and the other is for profile validation. And on this is where we can create the rules that we need to give validation to the new fields that we added. As you can see here, this profile rules function has the name, the email, And then it has the name rules. It has the email rules with the user ID attached to it. And if you come down here, this is where those rules are being defined. So the name rules has required string and max of 255, and the email has a similar type thing. And it's also passing in the user ID so that if a user is updating their own email, then it's already set up for them to make sure that the one that they're changing it to is the one that actually belongs to them, as well as it being unique for those users. Let's come up here, and then we're going to go ahead and create 2 new rules. So the first one will be the username, and we'll say user name roles. And we don't need, well, actually we do need the user ID because the username should be distinct to that specific user. The other part of this is the gender. And all we're going to make sure is that it's required. So this is going to be a pretty simple one. And this isn't reliant on whether or not, it doesn't have to be unique. So we don't need the user ID in here. Let's start with the username. And what we can do is we can copy this thing in here. And this one will be for the username. Username rules. We have the ID input in here. This is going to be required. A string doesn't have to be an email, but I do want the max to only be 50 characters. The rest of it is just fine. Those are the definitions for the username. And then I'm going to grab this one up here for the name rules, and we'll use this one for the gender rules. And as I said before, all I want to do is make sure that this is required so that it is mandatory once they register. Now, in someone's infinite wisdom, what they have done is created let's come up here. I'm going to uncomment those out, and I am going to come in here. As you can see, we have a GitHub folder, workflows, lint.yaml, and stuff like that. And what I have found is that while using GitHub, every single time I push any changes to the GitHub repository, this folder causes me a lot of grief in saying that there are errors. And one of the main errors that it tells you is that it can't run the test correctly because these fields aren't, part of the test. I have deactivated it for this project, but I do want to go ahead and change them in case you guys don't. Oddly enough, it doesn't have that with GitLab, but for some reason GitHub just cannot stop screaming at me about those changes. It could be a good thing. It could be an annoying thing. And for me personally, it's annoying because I know what those errors are. And even if I go ahead and fix them, I still get those linting errors. They're really annoying for every single time you push. If you have 97 commits that you need to make to GitHub, that means 97 times you're going to get an email letting you know that those fields aren't in your test. And we're not really worrying about tests. It's not something that's necessary for us to have. So I do want to go change the test so that we have that, just to kind of help out a bit and reduce some of the feedback that you're going to get from pushing commits to the database. We're going to go ahead and change them. I'm going to come down to this test folder, and we're just going to go one by one and do them. And the first one is from the feature auth folder, and it's going to be the registration test. If we come down here, you can see we have the name, email, password, all the fields that we need to create a user, but we do not have the username and gender fields that we are adding to our project. Just going to copy those. We'll say gender, test. We'll do test username. And here we'll say, okay, great. So that one will be done. We'll go ahead and save that. And the next one that we'll need to fix that in is in the settings and the profile update test, because this will need those fields as well, especially since we added the validation for them. So a username. And then we just need to add those down here. And what was it? It was this. Test email verification status is unchanged. Fine. Fine. This is for the password. Fine. All of that should be fine. Save that. And actually, I will do this one. We'll do this one. And this one is test email verification status is unchanged when the email address is unchanged. I'm just going to add those there. I don't remember if that's a problem or not, but I'm just going to change that there. And so that's all good. Let's just go ahead to the front end and make sure that we don't have any weird clunky errors. Refresh, and I'm going to open up the inspection tools just to make sure that we're not getting some weird errors. And this is just the V and the NPM stuff just telling us that the link has a something as value. It's not important. Don't worry about it. We don't have any weird errors coming to these pages, and we don't have those values yet on this. So why don't we go ahead to create that on this registration page so that we can have that for our users' registration. Now, because we are using TypeScript, I want to go ahead to the resources, types, and we have the auth.ts right here, which is defining our user. Let's go up top here and we'll add those new fields. And as you can see, the avatar is already here, and there is a question mark saying if there is one, then show it, and if not, then don't show it, but it's a conditional. That's what that question mark is up here. Go ahead, save, and then we'll go ahead to the pages, auth, register page, and then we'll add those fields in here. So let's come down to under this name field, and that's where we'll start. Now, I am just going to go ahead and copy this name one for the username. And then we'll just take out what we don't need. Label, username, username. It'll be a text field, and I'll remove all the requireds in a minute, but right now I just want to get it to display. The tab index is actually going to be 2. We'll change the other ones as well. Autocomplete is going to be username, and the name will be username, and so will the placeholder. Okay, cool. So that'll be the first one. I am going to copy, well, I'll just use that to copy the outside part of it. This will be gender. Gender. Go ahead and save that. And I actually don't want to use the input for this. I want to use the shadcn's component for the dropdown so that we can have that. Now let's go and check and see if it's installed here, which it should be select. It'll be in the UI folder and it will be select. So we have it here, which means we can just go ahead and use it immediately. Let's go ahead and close that. And I'm going to get rid of this stuff here. And we'll start using it. So we'll say select, and I want to import it from the variable because we're going to be using a bunch of them, or a bunch of the select components. Make sure it's imported up top, and it is, as you can see, it is right here. Now for the select, we're going to add some properties onto it. The first will be ID. This will be gender. And the reason why we're putting the ID and the names on here are because this register page is using Inertia's form component. And this form component is designed so that if you put an ID and a name, then those fields will be automatically included with the form submission. Input has the ID, name has the ID and the name. our username is going to have the ID in the name. And that's just how it works for that form component. It's a really smart component that just is able to get that information. So this will be the name. This will be type. Well, I don't think I need a type on there. And as I said, I'm going to remove the requireds. But for now, I just want to grab this, paste that in, and this is going to be the tab index of 3. All this tab index is doing is it's for accessibility, so that if you're using the tab button on the keyboard, then it can just know which is the next field to hit, which is the next field to sort of highlight or select when you're pressing the tab button, and that's what the tab index is for. Now, in this select, I want to use the select trigger. And again, this is a variable. And I need to close that off. And I just want to give it a little bit of a class, and that is of width full. In here, we're going to do select value, and I probably should do this. Make sure to import that. And this is where we can put the placeholder, which will be select a gender. And I think we can do because there's nothing that we're putting in between it. It's only going to have a property. So I think we can do that. Let's just check really quick and make sure that we're getting this. Okay, we have some errors. Let's go ahead, refresh, and make sure that we do not have any errors. As you can see, we have the placeholder here, and then we have the select gender, but we don't have any fields in here yet to select from yet. Now we have the select value, the select trigger. I want to come down here and do select content. And again, we're going to grab the variable right here. Open that up. And what I want to do is I want to use the select group. Make sure you're choosing the UI select that's actually in our folders and not the Rika UI, just because you don't want things to act wonky. And we are using, even though shadcn uses Rika, we're just using shad. Here we'll use select label. Here I'm going to put genders. And this is just going to be a little label within the dropdown. We're going to need the select item, and this is what we're going to be looping over. Make sure that one's imported and add that. Well, we have a list of genders that we're going to be using, right? So why don't we go ahead and create a variable so that we can have that. And I just want to move stuff over a little bit just because it's a little confusing for me when it's not. We have defined props, and here we have our password roles, define options. This includes our layout that has the title, the description, all the stuff we saw on that page. And we can just create a ref for that. So I'll use ref. I'll use the snippet here. That's not it. Auto import from view. And we don't need the type here, but these are going to be const genders. The ref will be female, male, prefer not to say. Sorry, I'm already losing my voice. Okay, and now this is what we can loop over for our genders. And we're going to do that right in this item. So we'll do v4, and we'll do item index in genders. The key will be index, and the value will be the item, which means that in here, now we can just put item because that's what we're looping over from that ref that we just made up top. Okay, so our select group, select content, all that stuff is done. Input error message, and this is going to be gender. We're going to give this a whirl, but first I want to remove all of our requireds. In case I forget to re-add these back, just re-add them back because they should be in there too. That's kind of the first line of defense when it comes to the validation, because that's on the front end. That's the HTML validation. And I want to change up these tab indexes too. So that's 3. This is now going to be 4, 5, 6, tab index 7. I'm sure I probably needed to reorder that, but that's fine. Different endpoints. Okay, let's take a look. You can get rid of this one. Refresh, and as you can see, we have our drop down here, and we have our username here. And let's just try to create an account, the username field, name field, username field, the gender field. All that stuff has its own validation. Now, something I want to do is for our username here, I want to do a little @ symbol on this username. And to do that as a placeholder, there's another component from shadcn that we can use to do that, because that @ I want to put pretty much everywhere we put our username. Take a look at the shadcn view component library here. We have the @ that we can do in here, and we can just have it as a normal placeholder. But how I want to do it is I want to have it like this, where it just sits in this section right here, and then we'll be able to type in the username. Because if we do, then you can see this remains the same. But if we were to do this here like this, that @ would disappear. But I do want it to look like this. So let's go and do it so that it stays the same. Now here we can go ahead and go down to the username, and now we can make some changes. So instead of the input being like this, now we can do the input group. Make sure we import the correct one, which for me will be the variable. Open that up, and then I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put it around the current input that we have. Then I'm going to change this to input group input. Make sure we import the correct one. We'll have ID for username. This will be the same. I'll get rid of this type text, name, username, placeholder, username, autocomplete username, and all that will stay the same. So now here we can do input group add-on. And then here we can do input text. And then now we can just put @. Okay, let's check the browser. Okay, go ahead, refresh. And as you can see, now we have that little thing in here. And if we go ahead and fill it in, it will still be here. Let's go ahead and try our validation. All that stuff is the same. Let's go ahead and fill it in. All of our fields are filled in, create, and now we're redirected back to the dashboard like intended. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.